Leading to. All right, welcome to Where's Your Next, the vlogcast once again. I've got Robert Merrill, my co-host, here with me. We're going to be doing more of these shows live, and we'll be looking to do these on Friday. So you can kind of see behind me, I'm in a restaurant, so hopefully that's not too distracting.
Awesome. I love that you're just doing it, man. It's great.
I know, it's kind of fun. But so everybody, what I wanted to talk about today is this is going to be a live stream about what we're facing in 2024. So Robert and I were talking a little bit earlier, and we're kind of discussing the nature of what the challenges are right now that we're seeing for recruiters on the market, as well as and that's recruiters are kind of the first people to see economic battle scars, right? I mean, we're kind of seeing a very strange reality. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to share my screen with everybody, and I want to share some data that I went over the other day. I'm going to try to run through these pretty quickly. I lose you, Robert. Uh-oh. There we go. Now you're back. I must have done something. I don't know. Did you push a button?
I think I was logging in. My bad. Sorry.
Oh, good. You're all right. All right.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to present my screen. I want to pull up some information that I think will be interesting to everybody. And I did this the other day, but I'm going to use my my LinkedIn profile because I have some data over there to go look at. So let me drive over real quick, and I'm going to just talk about share my screen. Let's see. Present. Share screen. Here we go. All right. So what I'm about to do is go over to LinkedIn here, and I'm going to share this information because I want everybody to see what I'm talking about. So as you can see, I have some data that I'm going to pull up from my presentation I gave a while back. So I'm just going to jump over here and jump in. So I gave this presentation a little while ago to some folks at HR.com. And what this is for, you'll see I'm no longer with the Source and Recruit company. So I left there in November, but this is still relevant data. So I want to jump into this a little bit and talk about what we're kind of seeing from the standpoint of the challenges. You can see this on your screen, Robert?
Yep.
Okay.
Looks good.
So, yeah. So this is a little bit about what I'll talk about. We're going to drive into this and just talk about what we're seeing. This was presented to some folks that were over in HR, and it was kind of geared to TA strategy at the time. But I think reiterating this and talking about this, about the challenges, and then we'll get into some discussion about the data itself and what we felt as TA professionals and as job seekers, quite frankly. So let's talk about the headlines real quick. These are some things that you've seen and you felt, and this is the reality of the big issues that we faced. You look at all these headlines and they kind of tell the story about what the reality is. I mean, quiet quitting. You heard about the great retirement. You also heard about the great resignation. These are all big terms that people are talking about. And then you're talking about Gen Z coming into the workforce and how they're going to succeed, AI and the future of work. The remote work revolution. We also could talk about diversity and what happened in 2020 with all that diversity stuff going on. And now that's all front and center. So let's just say it what it is, right? In 2020, from 2019, it was coming along, economy was going good. All of a sudden, boom, you hit the craziness of COVID. And then all of a sudden, all these insane things started happening, right? So here's some TA trends. I'm just going to talk about this. Look at this chart at the top. And what this is, it's from the Federal Reserve, but it was predicting when people were actually going to retire. So there was a trend line that you could see was pretty much following very carefully along the trend line on, it was trending in the direction that was predictable. So 2019 to 2020, that was predictable. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of baby boomers retired because they were afraid of the COVID situation, and a lot of them left the workforce. So we lost a lot of people, and then you felt kind of a shortage because we had all these free programs. People were kind of sitting on the sidelines, and companies could not find help. Right? It was just a big,
Right.
big mess. So you
Such a
look down,
mess. Yeah.
you look at all this down here, and then you talk about change in non-participation in the labor force. Look how it trended downwards.
Mm,
They were starting to
yeah.
leave the workforce for various
Yeah.
reasons up until,
Hmm.
and so that's been the trend line. It's been very interesting. So a lot of these people have been kind of hanging on the sideline. They probably had another person that was bringing in the income, and they could
Hmm.
do that because there was demand for their skills, and that
Right.
was exactly what we were feeling, right? So that's another trend line. Now look at this: Gen Z to rise. More than 80% of the U.S. pre-retiree households are financially unprepared for a secure retirement. What does this mean? It
Yeah.
means that there's more people caring for their older uh, folks, more multi-family situations, more the housing crisis where there wasn't enough housing. People were moving to new places that were cheaper. There was a mobility factor going on, and
Mhm.
remote work was here, and people could do that. And then what's happened in the last year? There's all these return to work initiatives, right?
Right.
So you've got organizations trying to figure out mental health issues were on the rise. Just yesterday, I went to the Central Human Resources of Utah event, and that was the focus, was the big problem with mental health in the workforce because people were isolated, and it was having an impact, especially on Gen Z and the rising generation. But the older folks too were feeling it. So
Right.
as all these things were converging, what was happening was more people were caring for their loved ones and living in multifamily homes, causing a lot of
Hmm.
stress. You
Hmm.
had Gen Z is paying more for their older parents. You've got
Hmm.
all these different issues that are work-life balance matters and things that are causing problems.
Yeah.
Remote work, the issues just kept coming, and it was all a result of COVID. Shocks in the system, free money. You had the Fed had 0% interest rates, plus people were getting free money from the stimulus checks and different things. Their savings boomed, which contributed to inflation and too few goods chasing too few dollars. And so what happened then? The Fed started to raise interest rates, and Silicon Valley Bank suffered. The folks who are here in Silicon Slopes were starting to feel a lot of issues that were relating to work. So these are the trend lines. Now, keep in mind, you've got a few things that are very interesting too. This trend of the baby boom generation is projected to outnumber children for the first time in U.S. history. And he's with the Census Bureau. By 2035, there will be 78 million people 65 years and older compared to 76.4 million under the age of 18. Now, what does
Yeah.
that mean? That means there's more caregiving, people are living longer. It's just all these crazy things. The median age is expected to rise from 38 to 43. The population
Wow.
will gradually grow at a
Yeah.
slower pace. And just
Hmm.
all these different trend lines. It's very interesting stuff. And, more of these baby boomers are financially unprepared for their retirement. It's just
Right.
all these things came all at once, right?
Hmm.
So what does it all mean? It's just generational shifts in the workforce are underway. Brain drain may result in from retirements in labor force by the baby boomer generation in the millions. That does mean that there's going to be more opportunities. So if right now you're kind of feeling the pinch, you're kind of going through this middle period of time as a recruiter, as a job seeker, you've been laid off. Take heart, because there's going to be more opportunities coming as a result of people retiring. Well, to someone in that boat right now, like me, I mean, I'm thinking, oh, well, what does that mean for me? It's like, okay, yeah, but is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it? Well,
Right.
there's going to be more opportunity coming. And a lot of these organizations are facing what you faced, but at a macro level. They got hit all at once at the same time with a bunch of things that were just shocks to the system. There's no way to plan for this stuff.
Mhm.
So that's why we feel reactive. That's why mental health is what it is. That's why you got to take a walk and get a break at work. If you
Yeah.
are a recruiter in Utah, you're feeling this too. I mean, it's everywhere right now. Everybody feels this. So here's a few more things. Remote work thing. So remote work is the new thing. I mean, more people, like, if all things being equal, Did you know that more workers will actually look at a at-work home environment in exchange for salary? They'll actually take a lower salary if they can have access to this.
Mm.
And it's
That
really
makes sense.
yeah, exactly, right? It's really interesting. It's showing a little bit of the how it helped their personal lives and affected their personal lives. This was a
Mm.
survey done by the Pew Research Center. It was back in 2022, so it's fairly recent. Or actually, no, it was actually 2023. February is his last year. So yeah, this was fairly recent now that I think about it. So only a year ago, but you got all these return to work scenarios going on.
Yep.
People are talking
Yep.
about that hybrid work, 100%, so it's you got CEOs and leaders that are coping with this stuff, trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? But at the same time, candidates love this work from home arrangement. So it's like, if you are in talent acquisition and you're not embracing remote work, you're going to lose candidates to another company who actually is open to remote work, which means you
Yeah.
have to kind of figure out the happy balance, which is why a lot of them are going to a hybrid arrangement, because they can still get the benefits of a lot of the leaders are struggling with, oh, there's a mental health issue that comes from being alone and not interacting with coworkers. So they're trying to balance that now. And that's what we're seeing. It's this trend line of it was this, but now it's that. And so
Mhm.
it's such a weird scenario that all came about all at once in such a short period of time. So these charts are very interesting for that reason. Here's another one. Of job holders in the United States, 58%, the equivalent of 92 million people, say they can work remotely at least part of the time. This was as of 2023. Okay.
Mhm.
So now that you've got more remote return to work things going on, which was the trend towards the latter half of last year,
Mhm.
what does that mean? These workers are going to be like, well, I just was able to work remotely, but now I can't. What does that mean? So
Yeah.
it's a struggle between balancing that need, and then you look at some of the Collier's Parish, who's the big um, commercial real estate company, came out with something the other day where they said there was still like 40% vacancy in U.S. offices or something like that, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly.
Mhm.
Really crazy stuff. It's still a struggle, right? So
Mhm.
here's the next one. Among employed respondents given the option to work remotely, 87% take employers up on that offer. Wow. So like, there's most of these workers will do that if they have the option to, and it can, and it's been shown to increase productivity. There's all these benefits to remote work, but you again, harnessing the in-person part of it, and that your balance of your team to keep them kind of engaged is a challenge, of course, right? That's the
Yeah.
issue that many of these HR departments are feeling, and that's why the return to work comes up so much. Here's
Yeah.
some other things. The This is flexible work varies by occupation and role. This was just a chart in 2022, just giving you an idea.
Mhm.
It was as late as June 2022, showing which organizations were using it. So 52% of all computer and mathematical, that's your software engineers, were 52%. Business financial was also 61. So it goes down on the charts. It shows you the different ones. Obviously, farming, fishing, and forestry is a little different because it's outside, but even 17% of those still had access to it. So it's just an interesting chart to see how the trend line was.
Yeah.
More and more people were working remotely. It was definitely happening, about up to about 50% to 60% of the workforce. Here's
Interesting.
the revenue increases for adopting AI. So we've been talking a lot about AI lately. The rise of Chat GPT. I just did uh, a little stream on that yesterday,
Mhm.
showing folks how to use it for a job search. It's going to be more
Oh, that's cool.
prevalent. Yep. So here's some other things.
That would be really neat to do. Just record that. That would be pretty wild.
Yeah,
Keep
we
going.
we could even play around with it today if you want a little bit. So, but as you see, it's interesting. Marketing and sales has adopted AI to some things. Supply chain management and manufacturing have seen some adoption. So this is the average cost decrease that they've experienced in each of these departments. Look at the bottom one in HR. The
Hmm.
average revenue increase is 2023. It's just,
Hmm.
there's been an increase in
Interesting.
productivity. So harnessing AI in each of these areas is and these are some of these are corporate functions. It just means that there's been an adoption. So one thing that's very important as a job seeker right now is to definitely gain familiarity with AI. You'll get familiar with Chat GPT, keep using these different skills, harness whatever you can. Like what I'm saying about Chat GPT is get familiar with what prompts give you the best productivity. And I would experiment on your own time with it. Get familiar with it. The Chat GPT 4 gives you the latest access to the latest and greatest data, but even the older version is still very useful, the free version.
Very useful. Yep, absolutely.
So I'm going to jump off this and stop sharing. These were tips that you could do. Actually, maybe I'll go through some of these. Now that I think about it, for your career, I would definitely do a SWOT analysis. You know, honestly, I think we should be doing this. What are the strengths and weaknesses you have? What are the opportunities you have? What are the threats? Are you in danger of getting outsourced? Do you have something that's going to happen in the next few years because of technology that's going to, so a lot of recruiters should be looking at this as well in our space. So these are some tips I had that were related to organizations. I'll skip some that aren't relative to job seekers necessarily, but basically I would say keep your eye on the ball and what the trend lines are. Do you set up Google alerts for yourself to keep abreast of the latest and greatest information coming out and the news that's coming? Are you keeping an eye on the various things that are happening out there, stuff like that? So
yeah,
that presentation was more for leaders, but I'm going to get out of it. And I think I stopped sharing my screen, didn't I?
No, it's still there.
Okay, I'll stop.
But your LinkedIn looks fantastic.
All right, I'm going to stop that. Okay, so we're back. So, but what do you think about all that, Robert? I mean, I know I went through that fast, but there's just some really interesting data there. And the other thing that I forgot to mention was diversity. As a result, diversity initiatives have become more prevalent as well because of 2020 and everything we went through then. So all of this is converging all at the same time, right? It's made it interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time, that's for sure. I remember, you probably know Adam Karpiak on LinkedIn. He's on Twitter.
I do.
He's
Yes.
hilarious. That guy is so funny. I don't know him personally. I would love to meet him. But I remember one of his posts a while ago was like, I'm kind of ready for some precedented times instead of all the unprecedented times. And it feels like, man, everything is different. Everything is up in the air.
His newsletter is really good. The one that, and it says it quite plainly.
Is hard.
Job seeking is hard, right? And I'll attest to that. I've been a runner up on about 5 or 6 of the processes that I've been in.
Yeah.
Very close to getting them, but it's very, very competitive right now. And all of this is converging. Like, you could go and find an article about what happened with Silicon Valley Bank and, what is the pressure so let's just talk about that for a minute. What are the pressures of the Fed raising interest rates when they're trying to combat inflation? And what is the downstream effect of that? Basically, what happens is it pulled out all the free money and all these companies had less investment dollars to work with. What was it? Can you share your screen? You shared a really cool stat the other day about VC funding. Do you remember that?
No. What one was that? I'm trying to remember now which one that was.
I'll find it. I can get there.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll share my screen
was
again.
It something I shared on LinkedIn?
It was something you shared. Yes.
Okay.
Brilliant share that you had. But I think this is also relevant because I want to show this because I think it's pretty key about, you hit it on the head with that. So let's go to Robert Merrill real quick. We'll look at his posting. Very interesting posting that you put out, and I give you commendation for that. So let me jump over here.
That's us.
And
you have to go to posts over there.
See, down there. Here we are. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
That's awesome.
All right.
Yeah. So scroll down to where it has, keep going a little bit more there. go to where it says posts.
Exactly. I was about to do that. I just got enamored with the fact that we were on the top of your profile.
Yeah, I'm surprised the space-time continuum didn't just fold in on itself.
I know, it's really funny, huh? Okay, so let's see. So let's go to your post. This was a brilliant one you put out the other day. So I'm getting down here.
Yeah, it looks like I post too often.
No, it's okay, man. This is good stuff. Yes. Here it is. This is what you shared the other day, and it was a posting from Pablo Shrugo. You shared this. Really interesting. And this is your wife, correct?
Actually, my wife that shared it, and I just reposted it.
And then you reposted it. Yes, exactly. So I think this is very interesting. It tells a story. So seed stage funding fell again this January. If you've been struggling to raise, you're not alone. So the small businesses, and the medium-sized businesses are the engine of the economy. Now, if they're struggling, that's why you're feeling what you're feeling. Okay. So seed stage funding fell again this January. Again, that has something to do with the Fed raising interest rates, and we've lost, Silicon Valley Bank had its assets acquired by another organization, another bigger bank. You've been struggling to raise, you're not alone. I'm seeing rounds that are smaller and take longer to close. So in other words, all that free money that they had previously is gone. Back in 2021, founders were raising 2 to 3 million pre-seeds and 5 million to 7 million seeds. That's in the days of 0% interest rates. These days, most pre-seeds I see are 1 million and seeds are 2 to 3 million. We're back to what was normal before interest rates went to zero in 2021. Rounds take longer. As a VC back in 2021, I felt pressure to move fast on nearly every deal. There was always another investor just around the corner ready to invest. But now most VCs I know have slowed their investment pace by 50%. Take that in for a minute. The fear of missing out ended in 2022, except for some AI companies, has not returned. The tourists are gone. It's an interesting way of putting it. It's not just VCs who are less likely to deploy capital. I'm also seeing fewer founders raising. That's because when times are frothy, many founders decide to start companies and many VCs decide to invest. They're both tourists and they're all gone because the only ones crazy enough to launch a startup today are the real founders. The upside is that by definition, if you're still in the game, you're a resident here to stay. I love how he says that. And look at this. Look at this craziness right here. This is very interesting. I'd be interested to see what it was like over here and back in 2019 on his trend line. But look at the decline, the steady decline in funding.
Yep.
And that really tells a story, which I think is very interesting. So let's talk about that. What does that really mean for us as job seekers, as recruiters, as folks that are trying to make it through in 2024?
Yeah, I think if you zoom out, we've talked about this before. The really big takeaway that I have, I think overall, if I only had one comment to make, is that, we've heard this for years, right? You have to be in charge of your own career. No one's going to fix it for you. No one's going to do it for you. I've heard that my whole working life, and I've been working for a long time. So it's even more, it seems like every year that goes by, it's even more that if you want to be in charge of your life, your career, you really need to be doing that part of the time. I think we have a mutual colleague, Jason Alba. He started Jibber Jobber way back, and he's written several books on job seeking. And he's one of the first job seeker advocates that I've personally met. And I just love that guy. But he years ago was talking about how you're never not job searching. And this was 15 years ago. And he was really talking about this concept that you're always on the lookout for whatever the next thing is. You have to be. And that's really at the end of the day, just the reality of kind of these things. Because I think that's maybe one takeaway, and there's more things we could dive into, but that's part of it is if you're going to be no one's going to come over to your house and knock on the door and go, hey, I know you're not looking for something new, but here's this gold plated, everything you could ever want opportunity. That's not going to just show up to you anymore.
Sometimes that does happen, but you have to be out in your professional community, contributing, helping, doing the things that you need to do.
Right.
And I think as we've been trying to build Recruiters of Utah and help Ryan Miller and Marcus Pies build that, I think we're seeing more and more of these challenges where recruiters need a place to go. And in about a week's time, I got a hold of Jim Shroud, and you and I had talked about this, that right now there's just not a place. Now I have to give credit to Hire Easy. They've created a very cool forum, and if you haven't gone yet as a recruiter, you need to. It's
Mm.
called the Hire Easy Recruiters Therapy Session.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so, and because they know that our community has faced these things, it's been a
Yeah.
whiplash of sorts. They've done a really good job of putting together that, and I have to give credit to Steve Levy, Paul de Beneges, oh gosh, what's his name, Mr. Hartman. Uh, there's some other ones that are
Yeah.
involved, but that group over at High Easy and some of the ones who've are some of the recruiting industry folks that are the big names are getting involved. Now, what's coming down the pike is I had a fairly candid conversation with Jim Shroud over at SourceCon. I said, look, we need to do something for the national recruiting community that, they've been focused on, some of the job seeker needs that have been out there in talent acquisition, but also for folks that, there's a lot of resources out there. But in SourceCon, I think we're getting ready to create what I hope will be a place, a forum where recruiters can come together and actually help each other in the job search. So because look at this, like one of the things I've ran into that I keep seeing, and I have to say this for what it is, recruiters are great at helping other people, but not necessarily great at helping themselves.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, sometimes they forget. It's so interesting because the things they've done before, like reverse engineering the job seeking process, they apply like every other candidate. So let me show you something that I want you to see that's just going to point to how crazy this is. I want to show
Yeah.
HR and recruiting job postings and what those look like right now, what
Mm.
a
Mhm.
live one looks like on LinkedIn. And then
Okay.
you're going to go, then if you're a job seeker in our space, you're going to be like
Yeah.
your brain is going to explode because you're dealing with this and you're like, man, how do I stand out from this? It's just,
Yep.
and I think it's important to show. I mean, let's just show you what we're dealing with here. It's insane. I mean, I can't even begin to explain it unless you're looking at it. So here's what I'm about to do is I'm going to jump over and I'm going to put in recruiter, and let's just see how many postings there are that have 1,000 or more. All right, look at this. Okay, so here's the
Mm.
latest and greatest
Now it
one.
just says
It's 3
over.
days ago, over 100, right? Well, scroll down and you're going to see they have a number somewhere that shows you how many there are. Oh, what's he saying here? These don't apply with no prior agency. See, he has to specify this because
Uh-huh.
part of the problem is, yeah, so like they're getting tons and tons of applicants. And so, like, oh, here it is. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at these numbers.
Mhm.
1,006. Okay. Here's another one. Let's look at this one. Okay. Over 100. Let's see just in 24 hours. I'm going to pull up ones that have, so date posted past 24 hours. This is going to tell a story to you about what we're facing. So yeah, there's 270 of these things out there, but reposted 2 hours ago. How many recruiters are on this posting in 2 hours? $435. Look at that.
Yeah.
435. So, and then you come down here, here's another one. And what happens is, okay, this one isn't so bad. 4 applicants.
That
Let's
was
see these.
that was half an hour ago.
Yeah, 5
31
hours
period.
ago, this is 23. But a lot of these remote ones, so I'm going to pull up the remote ones especially. because I think remote and hybrid will tell a more interesting story. So it's 9 applicants, 14. Here's one that's remote. Only 3. That's interesting.
But
Lucky.
one per minute.
Yeah. So it just, as you're looking at these, I think it's important to say you almost have to re-engineer the job search process and get ahead of the curve. So it may make sense where you need to start thinking differently. Let's look at some other ones. Like, I wonder about software engineers. What does that look like? How are they faring?
Well, I think the other piece of this, we're talking about re-engineering it. It's interesting. I think there's a few things. One is, as a practitioner in the space, I think that I hope that everyone who is suffering through trying to find new work right now, and you're just dealing with that black hole, and you're on that other side, and I'm hopeful, and I've been through that some too, but I'm hopeful that we can all, as an industry, just go, wow, like we can do a better job. Like maybe these tools that have been kind of given to us or
Exactly.
kind of handed down, that help us to, go through all the applicants and whatever else. Maybe there's ways that we can be more human about that. And I hope that we just
I
kind of
agree.
maybe double check ourselves, a little more empathy. And that doesn't mean you have to be slow or like get on the phone with someone and just hear about their life story for hours, but it doesn't mean that that we can't just try that little bit of trying to be human about reaching out to people, taking the posting down when you've had over 100 applicants, so you can get through everybody, rationally, and then put it back up if you need to, or whatever else that is. I don't know. Like there's a ton of different things. Like the downside is we have to be open about that we're hiring. Companies need to do that so we can have more inclusivity in terms of applicant flow. But also,
Look at this
I mean,
too. Look
gosh,
at this right here. 642
once one of
applicants
your
on the
yeah, once one of your
software.
jobs gets more than 100, like how long
It's
does it take to
insane.
go through 100 applications, like,
Well,
and give
that's
enough?
the other thing. So think about this. This is the reality. These folks that have these postings out here, are they, you see some of these and you're like, dang, how many of these actually have this many candidates on them? And it's just nuts. Like, you see some of these and you're like, holy cow, there's just so many people on them. Like, some of these, like, here's a software engineer for C++. This has only been this was reposted. So that's the other thing, is how often do they repost these things? So
Yeah, and LinkedIn
it
will
shows to
like
show how fast it
LinkedIn will
goes.
automatically repost some of them. Sometimes recruiters don't even know that their job is being pulled into LinkedIn to be posted, which, it's in a perfect world, you'd be able to handle and work through all those candidates. It's a challenge, right? But I think that
Right.
a big question is, I mean, there was a book way back early in my career that was given to me. A friend of mine told me about it, and it was called Never Eat Alone. And the whole concept around that was this idea that your personal network is the thing that will drive you forward. I mean, it's the reason people, when they go to university, they pick a university where it's like, hey, this is like, if you're going to go into business, you go to a good business school because that network is going to help you down the road.
Right.
People join fraternities or sororities because of that network. People
Right.
go to reunions because of the network. LinkedIn has kind of exploded this whole idea of having your network, and there's like the LinkedIn connections, and then there's the ones that you're connected to, right? And
Exactly.
there's, at the end of the day, I think the weird skewing of this is somehow it's almost like, I think of it like the Instagram effect. People think I'm going to go on Instagram and like become an influencer, but it's like, what's the reality of that? Like, how many of those people are there actually in the world compared to the millions and millions of people that are on there? It's so small, right? So you
Well,
can't just think
what's the other
I'm going to jump
challenge
up
that
there and
brings? What we've seen, right? It's like, how many people are remote now, and they're so
Mhm,
used to being in their little bubble, to the
mhm,
point where
right,
this bubble now is collapsing in, and it's affecting mental health. It's affecting all these things. People
yep,
are, you go online, it's very easy to get depressed in your job search. So I kept thinking about this the other day. I was like, okay, I'm getting interviews off this. I'm doing something right, because it must be. I mean, my resume has been rewritten a couple of times, and so it's actually getting traction. But now it's like, okay, there's all these people they can choose from, so I'm a runner up. I'm almost to the finish line, and then boom, get pulled back. So there's a few things to talk about with job search right now in 2024. One of which is, and this is what I'm experiencing. You have to keep your head up, and you need a support system to keep yourself focused. Like right now, Robert, you're doing 60 hours a week, and you need a support system. To the recruiters who've basically, what's happened is less resources. You back in 2019, 2020, you had a team surrounding you. Then, all these furloughs, all these things happen. So your skeleton crew again. 2021 came along, 2022, hiring like gangbusters. You had a team around you, resources to help you as a recruiter get through all these things, resources as a careerist. Wherever you were, you had resources. Everyone right now, fewer resources, fewer investment. It means that more people are doing more with less. That in and of itself can cause burnout very quickly. And so it's like, here's the deal. If you're an HR professional, you need to be on top of this stuff, and you need to be keeping an eye on it, because your team, when things start to turn from an employer's market to a candidate market again, and it will, it's just a matter of when it happens, and it's going to, because what happens is all these organizations, they failed to plan. They didn't strategically plan for their workforce hiring. And how could they, right? They're getting knocked with all these issues that are once in a lifetime situations. Like you were just talking about a few minutes ago, like all that data I shared earlier, all once in a lifetime scenarios, all these things converging all at the same time, making it extremely difficult for people. So what does that mean for a job search right now? Well, we have more tools now. We have an artificial intelligence tool called ChatGPT. Let's dive into this. I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to have a little bit of fun, and I'm going to do another little live stream. I did this yesterday, but I was experimenting. But now I want to have Robert's input on the ChatGPT and see what he thinks and suggestions on his prompts, and we'll throw his stuff in the ChatGPT and see what it pulls out. You ready?
Okay, let's see it.
All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to go pull up another file here. I'm going to get ChatGPT. Just give me a minute.
Mike, while you're pulling that up, let me mention something that I think is valuable. I've been there's this phrase that keeps going through my mind is that I'll just share with the listeners here. I guess if you're a recruiter today and you're in the middle of trying to figure out what's next and you're not sure where it's going to go, one of the things I would encourage you to do is just recognize that the entire market is kind of depressed right now. There's a lot of like downward pressure for companies to not like overhire, to not like overextend themselves. So where can you fit into that? And it really, one thing I just want to say that I think could be helpful is just keep this in mind. The future is fractional. I really feel like this idea that used to be side hustles, people would kind of have a little deal on the side. They'd sell stuff at a farmer's market or whatever. But if you consider this idea that what used to be like gig work or whatever else, and Mike, I know that you're in that space all the time and you really know a lot of pieces. If you translate that idea to what can I do for somebody, and even if it's an hour or two a week, that would be valuable to them, and I can actually send them an invoice and get paid for that. So if you could figure out a way that you could go to a company and say, hey, I see that you've got a lot of jobs that you're hiring for and you're struggling. Can I help with anything? Is there anything I can do? Even just booking interviews for one of your other recruiters, even if it's something as simple as going through resumes in their LinkedIn that have like all flown in and just like managing through all of those. Even if it's a little bit of time, if you're willing to kind of put yourself out there and say, I don't need a full-time job, I don't need benefits right now, I'm interested in just working as a temp employee, run them through a local payroll service if you want, or whatever, you might be able to come up with something that is not a job that you want forever, but it's a job that's better than nothing, And
which is interesting you mentioned this, because there's two platforms I've just become aware of for recruiters in the last 24 to 48 hours that I think are amazing. One is
Okay.
called Source Owls.
Okay.
And I need to explore this because I've heard about it, but I want to put this out there for any recruiter watching. So if you're in a jam and you're trying to make some income, obviously you can do the delivery apps like I do, which has been that's been sustaining me right now.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing in my life. I've had some good success with it. I've been able to bring in 1,000 a week, which is better than
That's
unemployment.
not nothing. Yeah.
I'm doing that, but Source Owls has projects that you can bid on,
Hmm.
if I understand their marketplace, but they have sourcing projects, real live sourcing projects that people are putting on that platform, and
Mhm.
just sign up and see if it works for you. That's a way to get some income. I'm not sure how it all works. I might do a presentation on this,
Sure.
on
Yeah.
my on YouTube channel to talk about how to utilize this. It's kind of like a gig platform for recruiters. The other one is Higher Scale, and Higher Scale is
Okay.
another ecosystem. Talked to the founder of it. His name's Gannon, really nice guy. The other day, and he's got an ecosystem where recruiters can bid on jobs and have opportunities, almost like that old blowhorn. What was that called? That old day when well, there was an old platform that just started
It's
out. Bounty
Bullhorn.
Jobs, Bounty
Bounty job.
Jobs.
Oh.
Yeah, Bounty Jobs was behind the ATS of Blowhorn, if I remember. But
Mm.
they came up with that whole concept similar to that a few years ago. But two of
Okay.
them, Higher Scale and Source Owls. Check them out. Really interesting
Okay. Yeah.
options for recruiters just to get project work. I'm going to take a look at some of these and see how they work while I'm in this transitional time. It's just a way to keep your skills sharp and fresh, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
do you see what I pulled up on Chat GPT here?
Okay. I see something here. Yeah.
I asked it basically, let's see what it spit out. My prompt here was, what would you do? I'm a job seeker who is trying to stand out in the job market. What suggestions do you have or steps for a job search strategy in 2024? And
Mhm.
it spit out just a generic thing, but here's a comprehensive job search strategy um, that goes beyond just submitting resumes. You notice it said that. Really cool that it keyed in on that piece, because again, you're going into a black hole. So here's a few
Right.
things. Just self-assessment and goal setting. You should be doing this at least on a quarterly basis for your career. Identify your skills, strengths, and areas for improvement. Define your career goals. Again, ChatGPT is spitting out some great stuff. Tailor your resume for each job application. Highlight relevant skills and experiences. Optimize your LinkedIn profile with keywords relevant to your industry. Clean up your social media profiles to ensure a professional and online presence. Attend industry events, career fairs, networking meetups in both in-person and online. Connect with professionals in your field on LinkedIn and engage with their content. Reach out to alumni from your university or college for informational interviews. This right here is very powerful. I've been actually pondering this, reaching out to some San Jose State alumni, represent.
Yeah.
So skill development, identify any gaps, take online courses, job search platforms. This is some really good information, and it just gives you some ideas of how to think about this. All right, Robert, it's now up to you. What prompt do you want to give ChatGPT on job search?
Well, let's here's normally how I would use a tool like this is I would see this and go, okay, great, that's awesome. But like, let's dive into something. So maybe what if you said, I don't know what bullet it was, what number, but you could say something like, tell me more about informational interviews. Like those were words that I know, but I don't understand what that means. What's an informational interview? Like what is
Yeah,
that? And how
absolutely.
do I do that?
Yep. All right, so it's spitting out all this information. So remember, this is a
Cool.
language model. So it's going to, as you ask it questions, it's going to give you information. It's pretty fun how it it talks about this. Now it defined it for you up here, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And
So
then it's got some steps.
yep. So informational interviews are meetings you arrange with professionals in your desired field or industry to gather insights, advice, and information about their career paths. So it's almost like one thing I think is really cool to do. Um, Maybe there's a person that you follow and you like the company they work for, and you see that they're in a role that you want, right? Reach
Yep.
out to that
Yep.
person and ask them what their day to day is like, because then you're gathering information, and that person could introduce you to someone internally. Now,
Yep.
that also works for internal mobility too. Say it's a
Mhm.
recruiting manager or recruiting director, and that's your aspiration as a recruiter, or software engineering manager, or whatever. It could be
Yep.
the leader of that, kind of a line leader, and you're
Mhm.
aspiring to get to that point. That's a really good thing to do, to ask them their perspective. So here's it. It has some good suggestions. Identify potential contacts, first step. Request the interview. Send a polite, concise email or message explaining that you're interested in learning more about their career path and would appreciate the opportunity to have a brief conversation. Prepare questions.
Yeah.
Develop a list of thoughtful, open-ended. You notice it says that. It's very, very smart to say that. Conduct the interview. Treat the information as a professional meeting. Be punctual, respectful, and attentive. Start by introducing yourself. Listen actively. And focus on listening rather than talking. I have a friend. Her name's Katrina Kibben. She started a business called 3 Ears
Love
Media
her. She's amazing.
because she said, you have 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to talk. That's why she calls
Yeah.
it 3 Ears
You should
Media, because
listen
she wants
twice
one
as
extra
much.
ear
Yeah.
to listen. Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Love that.
yeah. Anyway, so these are good, but maybe ask it, what kind of questions are valuable
Yeah.
in an
Another
informational
one I'd think of is give me a sample message that I could send someone that I haven't talked to in
Yes,
10 years or something
exactly.
like that.
Yep. So now this is great. Look at this. Look at it's how it's spitting out this stuff. And these are actually really good questions. It's how important do you think networking is? Can you recommend any professional associations or networking groups relevant to this industry?
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
maybe you already know these, but these are all good
Mm.
questions. It's really great how it came out with some good stuff. Can you walk me through your career journey and how you got to where
Yeah.
you are today? Well, let's ask it.
Yeah,
How?
one way to personalize some of this is like you might notice that they're in like if they're an engineer, maybe they're in IEEE or something. You're like, hey, so I've heard about IEEE. Like, is it worth it? Or if you're in HR, they're in SHRM, and you're like, hey, I've heard about SHRM, but like, what is that actually? And do you get anything out of it? I mean, that's how
Oh,
you're going to get that
all
insight,
right.
right? And
Here's
they'll
a
introduce you to that.
here's a cool question for you, Robert. You're working
Yeah.
on a few roles as a recruiter right now? What's one of the roles that you think is harder to fill that you could benefit from an informational interview?
Like if I was going to talk to
Like an engineer or something? Do you have something that's
sure,
quite specific? Then I can go out and find a professional, and then I'm going to show you a trick that you might like. This
like
is
how
kind
you
of
get
cool.
into that. I
Right.
mean, how about what if we just use me? Like if I was trying to find I don't know. I mean, I'm a recruiter, I'm more of a senior recruiter, but
Okay.
does that work for what you're trying to do?
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
what you're trying to do.
How would you
Or your own
become
profile?
how Oh yeah, I could do that too. How would you become a senior recruiter? What
Sure.
recommendations? So let's try this. Okay, so I'm going to say, watch this. Personalize a message for um, Mike Rasmussen based on his LinkedIn profile
Okay.
details below so that I can secure an informational interview. Keep the message between 100 to 300 words.
Okay.
Okay, so now what I'm about to do is I'm going to go to my profile. And so I'm going to my specific profile here. I'm going to pull this up, and then I'm going to scroll down,
Yeah, we
and
don't see it, but you're good.
you don't see it, but I'm pulling this in. So I'm
That's
going to
cool.
just take all my experience and copy and paste it, and
Okay.
I'm going to throw it into the prompt. So what I'm doing is I'm going to my specific profile, and I'm pulling in some information for it, and you'll see what happens when I do that. So I'm going to copy and paste. So I basically copied and pasted my LinkedIn profile information right from my experience and my education and some of my
Okay.
interests. And I
Okay.
paste it, and now you can see that right there, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So now it's going to take this question. I'm going to press enter, and now watch what happens. Okay, now it gave me a template.
Cool.
See this? So this is
Yeah.
kind of interesting. Let's read what it says here. Dear Mike Rasmus, subject, request for an informational interview from a fellow HR professional. Dear Mike Rasmussen, I hope this message finds you well. Now, I will say this. You probably want to take this out. There's been a joke lately among many different professionals that when you see, I hope this message finds you well, they can actually tell that it's from ChatGPT. So you probably want to take that out and say, oh, hello, or whatever, start it sounding like a human being. I hope this message finds you well kind of sounds robotic to some degree. So just an FYI on that. I came across your impressive profile on LinkedIn. You could possibly change that to reword it a little bit, maybe. And I was truly inspired. So what I'm basically saying is use your own creativity to take the template that it spits out and then reword it in your own wording so it sounds like you. Okay.
Yep.
The key to this is use it to get started, but don't use it as a crutch to do everything for you. That's
right.
That's best practice. Anyway, let's read what it says. So I came across your impressive profile on LinkedIn. I was truly inspired by your extensive experience and contributions to the field of talent acquisition and HR. As someone who is also passionate about recruiting and sourcing, I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to learn from your expertise through an informational interview. Your involvement with Recruiters of Utah, SourceCon, and HR.com shows your commitment to thought leadership and professional development in our industry. Really cool because it picked up on that. You see how it
noted your
it did a really good job.
Those aren't your jobs. Those are things you're affiliated with. That's
exactly. Cool. But I have them on my LinkedIn profile because it is relevant experience. So I'm particularly intrigued by your contributions as a contributing writer, very accurate, conference speaker, and advisory board member, as well as your hands-on experience as a senior talent advisor, which was my last role. I'm currently exploring opportunities to further my career in talent acquisition, and I believe that hearing about your journey and insights would be incredibly valuable for my own professional growth. Specifically, I'm interested in learning more about your strategies for sourcing, recruiting, and enhancing diversity in talent acquisition. This is cool because it picked up on this too, that I had this. So you see what I basically did? I used this to help it personalize. Okay. It's really cool because it actually will help you come together with a creative wording. And then you can use this to increase your chances of getting a job. Now, exactly. Yeah. Do you have another one?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, try this. Because one of the things I like to ask when I get something like this is, rewrite it, make it no more than 2 paragraphs and less formal, more friendly.
And make it 2 paragraphs, more, less formal.
Yeah, something like that.
And friendly. All right, let's see what it does.
Less formal and more friendly. That's what I meant. But
yeah, I think
you don't want it to be less friendly. There you go.
Yeah, this isn't bad at all. This Blown Away is a little more casual.
Yeah.
It's definitely using that. That's a good word. So background talent acquisition. It's, again, keep in mind, it's been trained. I love this. I'd love to pick your brain, hear more about your experience.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. A little more friendly, a little more casual.
Very, very good. So it rewrote it very nicely for us.
Yeah.
Now you can also use
this fits more in like if it's a LinkedIn message, it's only this much room.
Exactly.
Or if it's a text. The other one felt more like an email, and if I got that as a text, I'd be like,
right. And if you're texting someone, exactly, shorten it down. Like you can even ask it, how many characters do you think?
Yeah, that's 500 characters, but
please rewrite this.
I don't know. Do it in 150 characters. Let's see what it says.
150 characters. Yeah, I was thinking something like that.
Make it super small. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
That's really short.
Not bad. Let's increase it to, please rewrite with 300 characters. Let's give it a little more. Huh. Now, this could be interesting for if you're just trying to get.
That would be a text message. If you knew the person and you just haven't connected in a while, like, hey, Mike, it's been a while. Can I buy you lunch sometime and talk about your career journey? Thanks.
I admit I'm a terrible texter. I hate texting because I it's my generation didn't text as much, so I hate it. I can't stand it, but I need to
I
learn
think we're in
being
the same
more prompt.
generation, Mike.
I need to be more prompt with, well, I'm just laughing at myself because I need to be so much better at my text. I swear. I'm so bad at texting. It's not even funny. So I have to laugh at my own self about this. So keep them short and sweet on your
Well,
texting, guys.
yeah. Well,
Master advice.
if you think about it, if you're older like me or whatever, and you have younger people that you spend time with, children or whatever, like watch how they text with their friends, and the way that they talk is very conversational. It's like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, not much. What are you doing? And it's like, oh, I'm doing this. And if you think about that and you kind of replicate that same style in your messaging, whether it's on LinkedIn messages or whatever, you'll actually get better responses from people.
Yeah, for
Hey,
sure. And
hey, Mike, it's been a while. What's going on in your life? Looks like looks like you just got a new gig. Well, how's that? And then they reply, and then you reply. It's been a few months. How's it going? And like, oh, I like what I'm doing. And like, oh, cool. Can I, I'm interested in getting into that field. Can I buy you lunch sometime? And that feels like a conversation. That feels like a human, thing. If I got a wall of text that was like, hey, here's all the things that your LinkedIn profile says about you, that's a little like, I'm going to have to step into that more and go, okay, I know what you're trying to do. I'm willing to give that up to you. But if you reached out to me and you're just like genuinely talking to me, who wouldn't reply? If they're,
yep.
unless they're, they didn't see it, or, they don't really know who you are, and they're like, but I don't know. I also, a couple things I was thinking of is that a lot of people are a little nervous about ChatGPT 3.5. There's version 4, which, you can pay for. There's also Microsoft Copilot is just recently launched, and that's free for anyone that has a Microsoft account. If you have a work Microsoft account, you might have more access, but it's just copilot.microsoft.com. Sign in with your Microsoft account. You can create a free one, and that is actually GPT-4, but it's just through the Microsoft, because remember, Microsoft is an investor in OpenAI, so it's the same engine back there. Also, Google just launched their Gemini product, which is a competitor to this, so you can go check out Google Gemini, and it also does very similar things. And these are free.
The web too.
Yeah, and if you use the Bing browser, I don't personally, but if you did, then it actually gives you access to GPT-4 also through that. But it's
cool.
through Copilot, awesome. Microsoft Copilot.
Nice. Well, you see what I did here, right? I said, please create an informal text message prompt that will help you get a conversation with a key leader at Microsoft. Look at what it spit out here. That's really cool.
Very straightforward. I love it.
Yeah, and you can do that over
little
email
emoji.
too. It doesn't have to be, overly complicated, right?
No.
Let's think about another one. What's maybe a cover letter? Do you have a certain role? Let's see. Let me go find one. So
yeah, grab one of those recruiter jobs, and that. Yeah, but
let me.
We're coming up on the hour, so I'm going to need to duck off pretty soon. But this is super fun to go through.
Yeah, we can wrap up here pretty quickly. But one last thing we'll show is maybe I'm going to find one of these jobs and then see who the job poster is. So go to Debella.
I think a great prompt would be something like, help me write a cover letter for this. And a couple prompts that you can give it. Like you can say, help me write a cover letter, and you can kind of tell it to step through it. You can say, I'm going to give you the job posting, and then when you're ready, I'll give you my LinkedIn profile. And so what you're actually doing is giving it 2 pieces of info, saying, I'm going to give you these 2 things. And then after you've received those, help me write a cover letter for me for that job.
Let's keep this simple based on.
No, you're right. Yep.
This LinkedIn job description.
Cool.
Please help me write a tailored. Now it's generic because I'm not going to put in a LinkedIn profile, but cool. If you gave it that 2 pieces of information, it would spit out something more tailored. Based on this LinkedIn job description, please help me write a tailored cover letter to stand out from the competition for this role. And this will probably be the last one. So I'm just going to do this real quick and paste that in. There it is.
Nice.
Let's see what happens. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, this is interesting. See, so it gives you some ideas, but well,
Yeah.
we've talked about a lot of things right now.
That's
This is
awesome.
all very good stuff. And Robert, how much time do you have? What time do you got to log off to be at your meeting?
I should go ahead and move on, but this has been really
All
good
right.
to chat through stuff, Mike.
Well, yeah, I think
You're
we're
welcome
good.
to stay if you want and
No,
tie
I'm
off anything.
all
But
set, but I think this is good, and we'll be
okay,
back next week with some more ideas. But just keep in mind
lunchtime.
this job search thing is not an easy thing. So whatever you're doing, be a careerist, be ahead of the curve, do what you need to do. And
Yeah.
Robert, good luck with that 60 hours of craziness that you're involved in right now.
No, it's all good. I'm having fun. So yeah, but I think we'll see you next week for lunchtime.
Yeah.
On Friday.
Yeah, we'll have another topic,
Mike.
and if you want to be a guest on this, let us know. We'd love to have you.
Okay.
See y'all later.
All right. See ya.
Bye.